I've always thought I wanted to be known as someone as a creative person, so I tend to gravitate towards people that I think exude creativity, perhaps partially in the hope that maybe some of it might rub off on me. As I've been around those kind of folks, what I've come to realize is what they have that I didn't have at the time was they found their voice. Now, we all have a voice within us, but they have found their voice, they can hear their voice, and they know how to use it. I've also been very, very fortunate in the course of my life to identify a variety of people that have served as mentors for me at various stages of my life. These folks, who I would refer to as co-pilots, have provided me with the guidance that I've needed when I've gotten off my path, or helped me to make a decision when I've gotten to one of these intersections in terms of which way I should turn or which way I should go. And I remain exceptionally thankful to all of those folks for the assistance that they've given me. Yet despite the guidance and support of some really great co-pilots, I almost didn't make it here today to share in this wonderful opportunity. Now, it had nothing to do with a malfunctioning alarm clock. After all, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Nor was traffic an issue. We live in Eugene, Oregon, remember? But actually, it had everything to do with something I'm going to share with you today, and I'm calling it Yogis, Forks, and Copilots. To be sure that you understand who and what I'm talking about, let me give you a little bit of background. I love sports, which is a good thing since they play such a big role in my everyday life. And growing up back east, spending a good portion of my young life in New York, it was natural I became a fan of the New York Yankees. Among the litany of great players and personalities that have worn the famed pinstripes was one Lawrence Peter Berra, also known as Yogi Berra. Now, Yogi, who won 13 world championships and made 18 All-Star appearances, was inducted into the Major League Hall of Fame. Should not be confused with another one of my childhood favorites, one Yogi Bear. Although rumor has it that the bear in the hat was named after the Berra wearing the cap. But in addition to a stellar career in professional baseball, Yogi was probably most known for some of his quotes. He was one of the most quoted athletes in the world of sports, and although most of his quotes, he was famous more for the flubs than he was for any indication of eloquence. Let me share a few examples to illustrate what I mean. You may take a moment to savor and appreciate each of these. The first one, you've got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going, because you might not get there. This is like it ain't over till it's over. This is like deja vu all over again. And the one that's probably my favorite, and is the essence of my talk today, is when you come to the fork in the road, take it. See, the story goes that Yogi was providing directions to a friend who was coming to his home for a dinner party. He was simply trying to be a good co-pilot in the days before GPS and providing direction and guidance to someone so they could find their way. His intention was good, though the outcome probably left a little bit to be desired. As we go through this thing called life, we all rely on co-pilots, inevitably helping us to navigate the various paths and challenges that we face on the journey. It's also likely that we spend some time serving in the role of co-pilots for others. In either case, the intent of the co-pilot is to provide a positive outcome for the recipient. But unfortunately, sometimes it can be a danger when people blur the role of Yogis Forks and the role of a co-pilot. To illustrate this, let me share a little bit of a personal story. I was a freshman in college. I went to a small liberal arts college in Indiana, and it didn't take me long to realize that there weren't many people there that looked like me. On a side note, I'm starting to wonder if many of the people I met there in the late 70s didn't subsequently move to Oregon, because sometimes I feel like I'm reliving my undergraduate years. I've only been here for about 2 years, but I'm noticing that there still aren't a lot of folks that look like me. But back then, I was a 17-year-old kid from the inner city, and I had moved to a place where the culture was different, the pace of life was certainly different, and for the first time in my life, I was living on my own. Up to that time, I had been blessed with, Up to that time, I'd been blessed to be under the guidance and tutelage of a lot of great co-pilots. For example, my high school guidance counselor, who also didn't look like me, but despite my lack of financial resources, helped me to find the scholarship assistance I needed to go to college. or my creative arts teacher, who actually did look like me, but helped me to develop oratorical skills that gave me the courage to stand in front of people and speak with some degree of confidence. See, I was very well prepared when I got to college campus, and I started that collegiate experience as a biology major. About halfway through my first term on campus, I realized that I was really struggling to keep up academically. And it was because I had not gotten good advice and was taking a workload not normally recommended for freshmen. I should add that I grew up in a family where I was taught to respect elders, and respect authority, and respect the elders. So having firmly been embedded in this culture of dependency and reverence, I made an appointment to go see my academic advisor, just to tell him how I was feeling. He listened intently, and then he said something that I will never, ever forget. He said, "Well, Kevin, college isn't for everybody. Maybe you ought to think about going back home, finding a job, or joining the military." Now, he was my advisor, a tenured professor with a terminal degree in the course and the subject that I wanted to get a degree in, and tasked with the responsibility of advising hundreds of students, telling me that perhaps I was in the wrong place. Needless to say, I was devastated. Went back to my room, started packing my things, and started trying to think about how I was going to tell my family and friends back home that I had to find something else to do with my life. It wasn't until years later that I figured out that might have been the most important piece of guidance I had ever received. See, I didn't realize it then, but I had come to one of Yogis Forks. And because of what I was doing and where I was in my life at that point, I was preparing to default to the direction or guidance of a co-pilot. Compounding the problem, this co-pilot was, instead of advising me to go forward and make a choice, was actually advising me to U-turn and go back down the road that I had already traversed. As I began to pack my bags, I began to question why someone who had known me just for a few months would give me that kind of advice that would potentially affect me for the rest of my life. I thought about calling home and talking to my mother or my father, who obviously had known me a lot longer, would certainly have my best interest at heart and maybe provide me with a little bit of a different perspective. But instead, I actually listened to a person who a voice that I had never heard before, me. I had finally begun to hear my own voice. And to this day, I don't know how or why I got the strength, the wisdom, or whatever to make the choice that I did, but I started unpacking my bag, which didn't take long because I didn't have a lot of stuff anyway. But at that moment, I made a decision to choose a path and see what was down that road. Maybe it was a case of Yogi reminding me, it ain't over till it's over. To this day, I don't know the intent of my co-pilot's advice when I reached that particular fork in 1973. I do know that I could have chosen to listen to that advisor that day, or maybe called home to get a second or third opinion. Had I done so, I likely would have taken that recommended U-turn or started to search for the next exit ramp on my path. Who knows? Maybe I'd have found another path, but ultimately I would have regretted it because I would have realized later in life that it was not my own. Most importantly, I came to the realization on that day that I should not have been dependent on anyone else or what they thought. See, none of my co-pilots then would have known that had I left, I would have not met my best co-pilot, my wife of 33 years, a few short months after that conversation. No one could have better understood how much I valued that education that I received, how it enhanced my ability to communicate through written word, verbal presentations, and how this would play such a huge role in my ability to carve out a career in higher education. No one would have realized that the opportunity to interact with people that made up that particular campus and the surrounding community and came from so many different places around the country and the world would help me to appreciate the diversity that each brought every time we had an interaction. It would prepare me to live in places like Jacksonville, Florida, Fort Worth, Texas, Norfolk, Virginia, Eugene, Oregon. It would reveal my passion for engaging, interacting, and working with a variety of people, particularly young people. And of course, no one could have foreseen that over my career in education, that I subsequently would have the opportunity to work with, teach, and advise thousands of students, many of them on an individual basis. See, had I not continued on that path, I wouldn't have the chance to go last year to Philadelphia and witness a single mother complete a degree she started some 20 years ago as a freshman when I connected with her on her first day of her collegiate experience. I wouldn't be going to Nashville next month when another young lady that I met during her freshman year was being advised to drop her dream to major in biology during her very first term as well, because people thought it would be too difficult to balance the rigors of the academic curriculum with the requirements of being a varsity athlete. On May 17th of next month, this young woman, who no doubt has encountered a number of forks during her journey, will graduate from medical school and begin her residency at a hospital in Houston. Now, looking back, maybe I should have chosen another path because it took me 7 years to get that first degree. But that's the point of what I'm sharing today. It was my degree, and because of that, I needed to be the one to make the decision about that fork I was facing. The payoff is that my first degree and every one that I've earned ever since, and every success I've had, has been based on has resulted from me learning that, one, I had to hear my co-pilots, but most importantly, I had to take that fork in the road. So what does this mean for any of you hearing my story? Fast forward to today. We live in a time when we preach teamwork, and you're encouraged to find your place as a member of the team. Unfortunately, sometimes that place is somewhere that has been prescribed for you by someone else because it fits their own personal plan and not necessarily yours. We encourage groupthink and brainstorming in an effort to reach consensus while being collegial and collaborative. We try to get everyone in the right seat on the bus. We seek mentorships because we want to be just like fill in the blank, and we mentor others because we see something in that person and want to provide them a roadmap so we can help them get to where they were going. Or is it where we want them to go? Now, none of these things are necessarily bad, but there's a bit of danger underlying all of this. When we mitigate diversity, we stifle creativity. It is diversity of people, environments, thoughts, passions, beliefs, and even the way we look at objects and situations that produce the wonders we see and experience every day in this world. As an example, take a piece of wood. What if we all only saw it as something that we could solely use to build a shelter? What if someone else hadn't seen it as a source of heat or fuel? Or how about the person that fashioned a piece with holes in it that creates beautiful sounds when you blow into it? Still another took a larger piece and used it as a way to cross a lake or a river. Of course, there's the person who just chose to use it to help them when they hiked up the mountain to see what was on the other side. And finally, if someone hadn't thought to fashion a piece into a bat to hit a ball and create the great game we know as baseball, then maybe there's no Yogi Berra. And if there's no Yogi Berra, well, I don't have a topic for my title today. So instead, I'm at home working in the yard, missing this great interaction of people and ideas. Clearly, diversity is critical for creativity. I want to close by challenging each of you to take a step back. Take a step back from this mass production of things masquerading as creativity. Creativity is not the responsibility of one or a few. It's not just the presenters that you've seen and heard all day. Instead, it's the product of many inputs and perspectives. It's all of you interacting with all of us. It's the result of us each finding our own individual voice and adding it to the chorus, creating an even more wondrous harmony, still hearing your own part and owning it. I challenge each of you to rely less on our co-pilots. And for those of you that insist on extensively co-piloting others, stop it. Spend some more time focusing on your own path. You see, it's this diversity of individual approaches that will make for an even more creative tomorrow. So I hope that when you will not hesitate the next time you come to a fork in the road. And instead, I want you to just remember to listen to that inner pilot. Channel my friend Yogi, get to that fork in the road, and you take it. Thank you.